This video is the second of a chat series hosted by the mill and Sunglo Feeds. It is the playback of a Facebook Live event on the Mill Champions Facebook page on June 9, 2021. The mill's livestock nutritionist Karen Holloway joined Sunglo's Livestock Feed Specialist for the Mid-Atlantic and East Coast region, Nathan Holloway, and the Sunglo Feed Specialist from Texas, Brad Mabry, to discuss supplements that can be used to prepare livestock for the show ring.
Kind of maybe some things you'd like to learn tonight, but other than that, we'll just give it a couple minutes. So Brad, do you have a couple pigs on feed now?
Yeah, so just to give some frame of reference, I live in Texas. I just moved down from Iowa, so we're kind of in between our own barns. And like a good livestock family, we found another good livestock family that happens to live right next door to us. And so we're in between houses. We're looking at maybe building or buying. But the good news is we're in a friend's barn. We've got Dallas State Fair pigs on feed. So that show will kind of be at the end of September, first to middle of part of August, between the breeding guild show and the market show.
Yep. So how many of those you got on the ground?
Just four.
Just four. When is that show?
I think, man, now you're going to get me to line. I think the Guilt is at the end of September and the Bears is the first part of October. It could be reversed.
Okay. So some time.
It used to be right off the bat, but yeah, we got a ways. I guess it'll be right around the corner before you know it, So
yeah, I hear you.
As we're talking about this, as people are jumping on, what, for the most part, what time frame are we feeding for right now out there?
So right now it's jackpot season. Most of the county fairs are the middle of July through the middle of August. And then Maryland State Fairs, it's really around the last bit of August. I think it's last week, Karen. And then we got that Team Purebred show right there at Labor Day.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Right. So that'd be pretty typical to state fairs. I mean, like that's kind of like my old wheelhouse of being in the Iowa Jackpot Series, which would be running right now all the way. I think their grand finales come up in a couple weeks, and then they'll really start county fair season. Our county fair in Iowa that would have been last year was July 20th, and then it's pretty much nothing going on there between your county fair. Iowa started doing, like, if you win your county, you can roll into this kind of regional district type champion of champions deal. But besides that, it's really just get your mind right for state fair.
Yeah, I would say that's pretty typical around here too. I mean, jackpots really started the first part of May, and I know we had ours last weekend, and then I mean there'll be a couple more, but really around the 1st of July, you don't see really any more of that. It's just people getting prepped for county fair, and then state fair, of course. So yeah, it's really just typical to the Midwest. Let me run upstairs quick.
So what part of Texas are you in?
We live about 30 minutes just west of Waco, or as what I'm noticing, we live 30 minutes from Chip and Joanna Gaines. So that's pretty much I've noticed that our world is. I told people where we moved, they're like, "Oh, so Chip and Joanna." I'm like, "Yes, pretty much." So you guys want to come down to the silos? We'll give you a tour.
There you go.
Again, for those of you that are jumping in here, please feel free to comment in the chat there, what animals you have or what you're looking to maybe learn tonight or what you're looking to maybe change about your animals, because we're going to really try to make this more supplement focused compared to the last meeting we had, which is much more complete feed focused. So we just want to try to, we're here to help you all out. So let us help.
Nathan, you're good at mailing things out, right?
I'm good at mailing things out.
See, like if you guys notice, he's like nervous. He's like, what's this guy about to do? And I like to kind of spring this on people, but I also like a lot of interaction. So can I do a timeout and sprint somewhere and come back? We have something really cool. And I think if we get enough questions, maybe we can have, at the end of it, we'll randomly pick one of these question askers and we'll give them something really cool, and you'll be in charge of getting that to them.
I can handle that.
Perfect. I'm like the grandparent. I just promise everything, and you're in charge of getting it figured out. Give me 2 seconds.
Yeah, now he's going to get me in trouble.
Nathan, you might not have seen these yet.
No, I haven't seen those yet.
Cool.
Oh, those are sweet.
I'll be
Nice.
honest, this is kind of a dealer only thing. So, I mean, if you're into like some future vintage hardware, I mean,
That's where to look.
this is going to be a cool thing when you get it, and it's going to be a cool thing in a long time when we're all old and talking about the good old days when we were showing. So I'll talk about this a couple more times. Nathan's going to get this out to somebody. We want your questions, and so feel free to ask them, and we'll pick somebody out, and I'll be the good parent, do all the promising. Nathan will be the guy to give it to you. Okay, that's it.
Yeah. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started here. I'm Nathan Holloway. So I'm the Sunglo show feed specialist for like the Mid-Atlantic region. I work real closely with the mill and Karen and Dave Holloway too. And then Karen, you can go ahead, introduce yourself.
Karen Holloway. I work for the mill and have been there 26 years, I guess. We kind of got the show feeds piece rolling about 15 years ago, I guess. And so my total job is managing the livestock and poultry and dairy piece for the mill. But the part that I'm most passionate about is the show feed side of things and working with the families and the kids. So really enjoy doing that and have been doing that again for 15 plus years, I guess. So
That's awesome.
And Brad,
Well,
I'll give it to you.
Mabry. My name is Brad Mabry, and I'm a show feed specialist for pretty much Texas. And I do a little bit more in some other states too, but pretty much Texas. But as a Sunglo team, we pretty much share each other's time, so we don't get too boundary oriented. So if we need some help, I'm quick to call Nathan on some other stuff and him for me. So I'm definitely glad to be a part of this. And like I said earlier, if you guys want to ask some questions, and we really want to focus on supplements and kind of, I think we've got some great complete feeds, don't get me wrong, but I think sometimes our supplements get a little overshadowed. And I think as we grew our product line a little bit, Nathan, I think there's some things that become kind of old hat for me that I've been doing for a long time that probably don't get enough press because it's not the newest, shiniest thing. And so wherever you want to start, we can kind of rock through some of these supplements and discuss kind of how we use them. And I'll be honest with you on some of the ones that it maybe there's something that I don't necessarily use because it's not the livestock that I put on feed. And so we've got a vast array of supplements that maybe can tone down some muscle stuff or bulk and beef one up at the other extreme. And so at the end of the day, you really need to put the livestock on feed that you like, and then know that there's some supplement options out there for you to fill in the gaps that body type creates a little bit, I guess is what you'd say.
right.
Yeah. And what I read along with that, what I usually tell people is, I mean, supplements they're just not, we don't just feed them to feed them, right? We have a purpose in mind when we're doing it. So we need to be able to read that animal and be able to decide what we want to change or tweak about that animal before we really want to start thinking about bringing in a supplement. And that's where we're going to try to talk about real practical stuff that you can take back to your barn and really try to fit in. So please, if you have questions along the way, please ask them. Or I get the great privilege of giving out that awesome Sunglo sign that Brad has. But we'll just get right into it. We don't want to hold you guys up too long. But so Brad, so you said you have 4 pigs on the ground right now. And they're still pretty young. Are you really introducing much for supplements in like the early stages, or where do you really even think about bringing supplements in?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, there is one Sunglo supplement that every one of my pigs gets from the time I get them until the time we're done. And I'm going to tell you up front, it doesn't do a lot for them. So how about that for a sales pitch? Like, I'm going to feed them something that doesn't do a lot for them. But we're going to call it insurance, okay? So I'll tell you what it is. I'll tell you why I feed it and why I approach it in the way that I just did. That's probably not going to help out sales, but I'll tell you, if you adopt the way that I look at it, you guys need to be feeding this, okay? So Nathan, you got a guess on what that is?
Full tank or in motion.
It is. Bingo. Man, if I had an extra sign, I'd send it to you. Okay, so it's full tank. I love full tank. So let me tell you kind of what it is. I'm going to tell you why I think it's really bad, and then I'll tell you why I think it's really good. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to tell you is the reason why that I feed it from day one is it is the veggies. It is the part of the meal that we struggle to get our kids to eat. It is Brussels sprouts. It is broccoli. Okay. And so the first thing I'm going to tell you is when you go to buy it, it is not the most savory thing out there. Now, cattle love it. So if you're feeding cattle, they'll gorge themselves on a bag of full tank. They like it. It's a great product. It does a little different thing in a ruminant than it does in a monogastric like a pig. But they don't love eating it. So that's the first thing I'm going to tell you. And so if you're one of those feeders that you just only feed the stuff that they love eating, this is not cake mix. And so on the opposite side, what it's doing, in my opinion, is it is insurance for holding and insurance for rib and body shape later on in life. And so the reason why I start feeding them it now is I train them to eat it. And what I mean is I have a little coffee grinder, and so I've got a Duroc gilt right now. I love her. I think she's incredible. She's got an incredible rib cage in her. And you might go, well, man, that just doesn't seem like you need full tank. However, later on down the road, if I think I need to manage that one's body weight or hold her, but I don't want to lose that body shape, I've got that insurance of appetite already built into her at a pretty low cost. And when I say low cost, I'm one of those show dads that when we're in panic mode, we drive hours to get the magic, lever to pull, button to push kind of thing. And so for me, full tank is a safety net that I know if I can train them to eat it before they hit 140 pounds, then when they weigh 240 and I'm in that jackpot season and I'm bumping up on an accelerated weight gain that maybe starts to affect their structure. And I go, man, I want to keep jackpotting and I want to keep that body shape without getting them fat. I want to hold top shape without getting them fat. I've got a filler type product, right, that does a great job of creating this incredibly fresh midsection without getting them fat. Or on the barrel side of things, I can hold that belly and body shape without gaining a bunch of weight. So let me go back and recap on what I'm saying. They don't like eating it, okay? And so it's not something I'm going to tell you it's a great door opener for Sunglo that the first time you jump in there and go, they're not going to eat that. My kid doesn't eat its vegetables, right? He doesn't eat Brussels sprouts, but I know it's best for him, and I convince him to do that. And the way I do that is we just limit feed until they're eating their veggies or their full tank. Now, here's what's interesting. The Duroc gilt loves it. She'd eat straight full tank. We've got a Chester gilt that she's a little pickier of an eater. And so just like my two kids, one of them super aggressive, he'll eat canned sardines. The other one won't eat tomatoes. And so it's just a matter of what their palatability factor is. So I feed it all the time. And maybe on the Duroc gilt, I never up that past like a quarter of a cup. And I never need it because she's just this perfect pig that never needs more of anything. But if she is the type where I'm trying to manage that body shape and fill, I know I've got that insurance that I'm not going to be training an animal to eat something at 280 pounds 2 weeks away from, the time to go. And so love full tank. I think it's my favorite. It is my favorite supplement that we've got because I'm kind of a person, I love livestock that are fresh in their body condition. I try to avoid feeding lots of fats. I think our feeds are so palatable and already have so much goodies into them. I can change flesh and body tone and shape with a lot of the feeds we already make. And so what causes show parents to freak out is what the things we can see, which is, man, that pig needs more belly. And what we do is we naturally think, well, man, if I'm going to get more belly, I can tell you how I've done it over the last 20 years, which is lots of fat and sweet and savory things. That's not the type of fat that's very flattering on me or your pig. And so really what you want to do is you want to stay, if you can, final push in terms of that last bit of bloom and cover. And a different type of supplement we can talk about later is great. But when you feed those heavy fats for a long period of time, to me, livestock don't look as fresh. They start kind of showing their age and get stale. And that's heifers, steers, cattle, pigs or anything. And so full tank is something that I think you can feed all the way through. And with that, I'm kind of different, Nathan. I don't feed oats. I'm not somebody who's like, we feed 2 pounds of feed and a half a cup of oats. I've just never been a person that really buys into that. Our feed is nutritionally complete, where if our nutritionist thought they needed to take more fiber, we put that in the ration for you. And so whereas full tank is a little bit something where I know I might be shaping their body weight and their body dimensions a little bit later on in life. And so that's why we don't add it into our feed. But I'm not somebody, so I guess you could say I substitute oats for full tank in the beginning.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting you say that, because the only other person that I know loves full tank as much as you do is Brandon Yanis, and he loves talking about full tank because, and it falls right in line with what you were saying, just because if we think about the maturity curve of those animals, whether it's cattle, whether it's pigs, whether it's sheep or goats, whatever it is, we want them to hit the peak of that maturity curve when our end goal show is, whether that's a jackpot or whether that's a county state fair, whatever it is. And I know a lot of people that use full tank for just that, just for, like you're talking about, managing that freshness, managing that almost how much they're gaining per day, how much they're converting, and just managing that overall fleshing of that animal with full tank, because it's by no means the flashiest supplement we have, but it's one that's really, really versatile, which is really cool.
It's definitely not my something different. I will tell you guys, if you're a jackpot family and you're listening, your county fair or anything, you need to bring something different to the show with you. Like, it is naturally going to happen that your livestock are going to turn their nose at a show, and you're going to freak out. I mean, you feed them a hamburger if you it's in your hand. Like, try to get them to eat anything, and you need to bring something different. So my something different at a show is s'more fill. I feel like any class of livestock is going to eat s'more fill. It's good stuff, and it is my something different. When I get a show and I get something that's getting real picky, I don't feed a lot of s'more fill at my house. We use a little bit of it for some digestive issues and stuff, just to kind of reset them a little bit when we run into some problems. But it's my something different that I bring and kind of shake in front of them and get them to roll in and eat. But yeah, for the most part, I don't necessarily think, sometimes we think about animal nutrition in the right way. Like, sometimes we'll get to talking and in our mind, we can add protein to burn fat. So that would be like eating a Snickers bar and dipping it in some kind of soybean meal and thinking that that's a way to burn fat. Where all you do is add calories, right? And so we really need to reduce calories to burn fat. I mean, a really simple diet is to work out more and eat less. Well, that full tank allows us to do that. They have a daily requirement of calories just like we do. And if we take up some of that volume of their expected diet with something that just between us doesn't have a ton of nutritional value from a monogastric standpoint, it slows down that digestive process. They're really not digesting a bunch of it and turning that into carbs and fat and things like that. And so all we're really doing is taking up and occupying some of that appetite, and it does slow them down enough where you will see a massive amount of rear rib drop and rib shape. Now, on the cattle side, they're going to digest some of that. And cattle are the most amazing creatures in the world, and they can do things with different feedstuffs. But on the pig side, they're not getting a ton of nutritional value out of that. And that's why I like it. It can really tone down that gain that's creating some of those structural problems sometimes.
So every year there's a lot of questions about holding animals. And I know a lot of times we use full tank because it goes in there, sucks up space, and then it's not really nutritious to pigs, because that beet pulp, they're not ruminants. They really can't break it down like that. Right. So what are you feeding alongside of the full tank and complete feed? Because you simply can't just take away that, vitamin, trace minerals, amino acid profile. So what are you reintroducing with that?
So if we're talking about holding, I want to do a little red flag here. If you're not feeding full tank, okay, and you just throw it in there, your pig's going to gain a bunch of weight that first day because of what Nathan just did, the water. It will retain water. And so believe it or not, that pig, and I'm not talking about retain water in the good spots like up top or anything. It's not going to crack one open. Because it sits in their gut a little bit longer and slows that digestive process down, it itself will soak up water, and you'll see a spike in weight, but not weight gain, if that makes sense. And I can prove that by if we just stopped feeding it, they would pass that back out and their weight would drop back down and kind of come back down to whatever their normal weight is. And so just as a caution, I do use full tank to hold a pig. But that initial, it's not my panic feed in that, because they will gain weight initially on it. And so that's why I start early on, because we won't see that initial compensatory gain, or however you want to call it. You won't see that initial pop in weight gain. But to answer your question, I'm kind of a low volume concentrate guy. That kind of segues me into another product. I'm a big fan of Final Control. It's probably our densest feed from a nutritional standpoint of just raw protein. And so now you're kind of getting into an area where when we can get them enough protein to hit their requirements, final control is pretty hot in terms of protein. You'll immediately start to burn off some flesh. The first place you're going to see that when I feed final control is I will immediately lose some body shape. Well,
so what level are you feeding at?
What's that?
What level are you feeding that at? Just so to give everybody an idea.
Yeah, and this gets dangerous, right? Where I start going up, start them out at about a pound. I would say when I start to want to see one,
the safe side of things.
Yeah, like I start everything out about a half a pound. So just to give you all a frame of reference, I'm grabbing a handful with my 5'7" tiny hands. I'm grabbing a handful of full tank right now, and these pigs probably weigh 150 pounds. And remember, I'm just feeding them their vegetables, right? I mean, I'm looking at it like I'm training them to eat the full tank for a later date. It's my insurance. It's my body shape insurance. For at the time that we get that pig a little too fat, or I need to add some muscle shape, or I'm bumping up on weight, I can start them out on a half a pound of final control, see if I get a little bit of top shape back out of them. And when I do, I know I'm going to burn some lower body fat with that final control. The great thing is I'm not going to then panic, right? And go, no, I got to feed them a bunch of fat to try to get that rib back in them. I know that full tank, when I up that, their rear rib's going to drop just a little bit too. And so and you said Yanis, I'll tell you something about that guy. I think he's a genius when it comes to feeding livestock. And if he had a couple Chesters a while back, and if you watch his pigs, I just think they are so lean up top, so hard and dimensional underneath without any extra flesh from their sheath back. They've got a very firm, and I call it a youthful turn to both their top and their underbody. And so I think that, to me, that's the sign of elite livestock when they hide their age really well. So I'm not going to get into how old they need to be and all that kind of stuff, because look, I might be coming out and judging your county fair sometime, and your job's to trick me in that, right? I mean, I'm not. I just want to use a good one. And if I call him youthful, you might go, yeah, he's 10 months old, and I go, that's fine. He's still youthful up top. He's still youthful underneath, and you guys have done a great job of masking and managing his age. That's where fat doesn't do a great job of that. To me, it exposes a lot of their age and maturity.
Yeah. Karen, you had some really good firsthand experience, I think, a year or two ago with a pig that just got too heavy on you too fast. And I think you guys used a good bit of final control and full tank, didn't you? What did you see?
We did. And he was one crossbred bear that just could practically gain weight on air, it seemed like. Mm-hmm. I mean, we had him pulled down to probably about a half a pound of complete feed a day, a couple pounds of final control, and some full tank. And we pretty well held him with little to no weight gain for probably the last 2 to 3 weeks before the fair. Mm-hmm. And I mean, you couldn't tell. He, like Brad was talking about, good top shape, just still had plenty of body. And I mean, the products work, there's no doubt. And I would describe him when he came into the fair as being, kind of had that youthful look, that good, fresh look that you're talking about. Yeah.
To put it in the football analogy, I want my pigs looking like Gronkowski. I want mine to play tight end. You know what I mean? And so we're trying to manage that bulk and mass the entire time they're on feed. And if we try to get them there too fast, they won't ever make the pros. You know what I mean? And so we got to really have a vision when we put these livestock on feed about what's fair to that animal's body in that frame of his life. And so I would almost venture to guess that somebody built like that probably was still a big kid, but he was never built like that until he matured. And after his body hit that growth at the right time, then he laid on an amount of bulk and mass that allowed him to be so dominant in the way he is now. And so I feel like if you're understanding that animal's maturity pattern, the day you put it on feed, I've got a spot on feed. I'm sitting here thinking about her. I know that once we hit 220, 240, I'm going to battle flesh and condition on her. I know that. So I know I'm going to, keep as much powdered fats and fattening type deals off her. I know that animal's going to eat a lot of full tank in her life. I know that. Doesn't mean I don't like her. I think she's incredible. However, I know that's going to be her whole. I'm looking at her maturity pattern and starting to realize that. So I'm managing flesh on her already. Those two products allow to do that. I'm not going to jump on the final control now because she's going to get fat later. I'm going to keep her from getting that way by keeping enough rib and body in her with the full tank. I think I've oversold full tank. Hopefully, maybe a bag.
15 minutes worth of full tank talk.
Yeah, bye.
We got to move on. So we were talking about top shape quite a bit, and I'm curious to hear your take on it and your opinion on it. I mean, are you using much game on along with building that top shape in those animals? And where does that kind of fit into your feeding program and how we feed it?
Okay, real talk here. So there are things that come into the livestock world that make promises that I sometimes buy into and then I get disappointed with. I would tell you I am what you would call in the sales training 101 a late adopter. Something like Game On, I might have been the last person to try because it was different than what I'd ever fed. It looked and smelled different. It's expensive. I mean, I'll tell you, its initial first cost, I think when you go to buy it, is expensive. I bought a bucket of it. I have fed almost every pig since we had that. And it's one of those things that when you look at what it costs versus its value, I think it's cheap because it works. And here's my feeling on Game On. I think it does the best job of, first of all, feeding all species. And it's so versatile. I can tell you that they love eating it. It's the opposite of full tank in terms of appetite. We can feed it to them in a bunch of different ways. It will add not shape, but bulk and mass and shape. And so what I am doing with my full tank is prepping that animal to get fed 14 to 20 days of Game On. It works so fast. I don't get in a hurry with it. I don't start it too soon because it works. And I know it works to the point where I'm patient enough to wait until the animal needs that product. Some other products, you just feed it to them the whole time, hoping it kind of works. And maybe you're looking at it through a lens like, okay, I bought this product and I want it to work. I think I'm seeing it. Game On works. It's going to add bulk and mass down their top. It's going to lay a level of bloom across their body that will give that animal such a finished look that you need to make sure that that is a product that you are prepping your animals to finish them out on. I will tell you a couple of different ways to feed it. In an emergency situation, this is stealing from Brandon Yanis. Take, I think it's 5 pounds of Smorfil, like a half a pound of Game On, and mix that up like wet oatmeal and let it sit overnight. And let that be what's in that animal's belly when it walks in the ring the next day. It's low and light. It's not. There's not a lot of crazy stuff in there to get one to tie up. They will absolutely smash it that morning in terms of appetite. And to me, what better way to roll into the show knowing that your pig is going to eat a big, big meal that's not. And this is totally counterproductive to what we've talked about years past, because I guarantee you most of the people listening to this, you go, hey, what do you feed your pig on show day? And you go, whatever's around me. If I'm out of feed, I ask my friend. I mean, who cares? He's going on the truck here in a little bit. We'll just put some feed in him, and then the pig ties up. Mix Game On, because there's an electrolyte factor to Game On. It's a complete feed when you think about a complete final finishing feed. When you're looking for a great electrolyte, like For Sure, like we're going to talk about in a second, you're looking for some calories in there to get them through that kind of marathon throughout the day. And I know they're not running a mile or 2 miles, but that's the biggest physical exertion that animal's had in their life. And they're doing it at the heaviest weight they've ever been at. So we know we need calories in their belly to get them through that. And we want the electrolyte factor. You're going to get some of that and a little bit of energy out of that product. And you're not going to worry about tying them up. And so feed it like that. You can get them to drink it leading up to a show. If you really think you're behind in terms of bloom and mass, if we're leading up, you can get, mix it with water and you can get them to drink it. I like Game On. It will get them finished faster than anything I think you can buy. And it does it in a very firm fashion. And that's what we're going after. We don't want anything that's going to make them sloppy. I think it puts a hard, muscular bloom on them that there's just nothing else out there like it.
Yeah, and I think it fits. I mean, it does the same exact thing for small ruminants too. And it's awesome the top shape it'll build. It'll look like they essentially just, built on loin, but it's really just
It's
a
bulk.
good, heavy, hard fat. Yeah,
It's bulk.
Yep.
Yeah.
But it's not that greasy,
you
greasy fat that you can see.
Yeah, we've all seen fat cows that got fat out on grass. So they got fat on a non-fat diet, right? But they did it over years and they look stale. And so really what you want to do is you want to be able to fatten them like that. And when you do that, that will look youthful. That will look smooth. It won't look patchy. It won't look ununiform. It won't look stale. And so to me, it puts a fresh bulk and mass on them. And if you're patient and you wait to do it, and you've got their center body fresh and ready for it, it's on.
Well, that's the thing. And Terry made a really, really good point. And if nothing else, it just keeps those animals really, really fresh. Because that high fat, high protein, and just like you said, a little bit of that electrolyte factor in there too. It just keeps them really, really fresh. And then so I wanted right into that. What about foreshore? So you touched on foreshore, and Karen, I'm going to get you to touch on foreshore after Brad does too, because I know there's a lot of opportunity out here, and I think electrolytes, in my opinion, are one of the more underutilized products out here on the East Coast that there's just not enough people using it. So.
Yeah. So the first thing I tell you about foreshore or any electrolytes is water, right? So I'm going to tell you, this is my opinion on electrolytes, is we really want to hydrate livestock. One of the things that I see at a show most often is the longer we're at a show, the worse pigs get, right? So if you're just getting started, and I feel like sometimes, now 10 years ago, I would have been the opposite of what I'm going to tell you, but now I wish we had to be there for 15 days. Because what I notice is that the pig's schedule and their daily requirements are the same or even higher due to stress. So that animal gets in there, there's a lot of noise, all the senses are being challenged. That animal's under probably more stress than what they usually are. They're out of their home, they're in a new area, all this stuff's going on. When we're under stress, they need more nutritional requirements from a water intake standpoint, but it's the only time they've ever been off water, right? At the same time, we're distracted. We are a distracted show family that is pulled in so many different areas across the show. And so what ends up happening is you're not tracking water consumption. And so the first benefit to feeding foreshore is it tastes good. They like it. So even if you got no electrolyte factor out of it all, you need to remind yourself that you need to be watering your pig. I always say a good reminder of when you need to water your pig at a show is if you see a pig at a show, you're like, oh, there's a pig, I need to go water mine. When you think about water, get it to them all the time. So we start with just a scoop and a big bucket at the house and kind of train them to drink it. Because if we do run into a show that's got odd water taste, Illinois State Fairgrounds, man, every year when I go to Springfield, I feel like my pigs don't drink. And if you go to that show, the pros will kind of bring their own water. We just bring foreshore, and I just noticed if I train them at the house, for whatever reason, when I get to that fairgrounds, our pigs are fine. So I use it as a masking agent at first. But I personally think that is the safest, best bloom electrolyte that you can do. And as an own added little bonus, coming from a jackpot kind of family, we will start them with a couple scoops of foreshore on Thursdays leading up to a Saturday show, and then we kick it off on Sunday. So they go Thursday, Friday, Saturday on foreshore, and I'm getting enough caloric intake into them to kind of hold that bloom without getting them fat, so that we're ready for the weekend, because something's going to go wrong. They're going to miss meal. They're going to miss water. It's going to be hot. I'm burning extra calories. And so for me, I use foreshore kind of as an insurance rolling into the weekend, because, I'm thinking about that show, but I'm also thinking about the recovery period to roll them into the following week as well if we're on some kind of a points circuit.
Right.
Yep. Karen, you have anything to add? I remember we used to always use foreshore. And I'm sure you guys still do. When someone chases pigs.
Yeah. Well, and I think just to follow up on a couple of the points that Brad already made, it foreshore is much lower in sugar than some of the other electrolytes out there. And he mentioned that, you're not going to run into the issues with tying up with Foreshore like you would with some others. And the fact that it is, again, it's providing more than electrolytes. It provides added nutrition, added calories, and there's really a lot of pluses to it other than just saying it's an electrolyte. The palatability and just it's going to kind of give them, it's going to hydrate them, but it's going to kind of give them some fluff, I guess, without, like you say, that sloppy fat look to it. And so it and like you said earlier, Nathan, I think it really is underutilized. I think it's a great product, does a great job, but is one that probably definitely underutilized.
Well,
I would just say this.
I just think about, go ahead, Brad.
Just on electrolytes in general, I think there's some great electrolytes on the market that other people sell. I mean, I'm here to help you guys, and I would tell you, I think there's other ones out there that are great. Right. When in doubt, go dilute them. This isn't killing an ant mound. We're not going to put an extra scoop on to get the queen in 10 seconds. You can do more damage dehydrating that animal over a longer period of time. And so of all the things that anybody makes, some of these really salt-based, high sugar, high salt, water retention-based electrolytes will do their job at a lower dose. And so remember, the most important component to any of the electrolytes is the water that you're mixing with it. If you really want to crash a pig and see some bad results, just pour the dry electrolytes on his feed for a while and see what happens. And take the water away from him. And you'll just dehydrate the pig, you'll lose all your top shape, and you'll see how damaging dehydration is on the pig. And so it's not something you want to do. If you're looking at it, start very light and really let that animal drink its way to having more back shape than thinking that the powder inside of that. So I do like electrolytes, but to me, the part of the Foreshore that's so good is the bloom factor, that calorie factor that comes with it. And the fact, like you said, it doesn't have a ton of, raw sugar that's going to, potentially tie one up if they react poorly to it.
Yeah. And so I think about too, I mean, how many times have you been to a show where, you think that you're just this far away from, being the next spot or being champion or blue ribbon, whatever it is, right? And if nothing else, it's just a little bit of a, not to use insurance policy, but it's a little bit just added benefit to maybe give you that extra step. You're not gonna see a huge difference in muscle expression. You'll see a little bit, not a lot, but it's just a little bit to keep that freshness, that added calorie, that added hydration, just to help them out just that little bit more. But
you need that show day bloom for sure. That little bit of swell goes a long way. Particularly that we've kind of just gotten livestock naturally narrower with getting them kind of cooler necked. Their chine bone, we're starting to talk a little bit more of that. When we're at a show, that the bone that runs in between their blade, their chine bone, we start holding them, that starts to kind of creep up a little bit. They don't show that shape right behind their shoulder. And I'm kind of a fan of livestock too, even when we got bad pigs at a show, and it happens to everybody where, it's just, we show up and go, oh my gosh, like that's the standard now? Great. And so take a second and look around and realize that maybe you don't like the body type of the pig that's beating you, but you look right behind their shoulder, and if there's 100 head or 5,000 head like in some of these Texas majors, I promise you the ones at the top are extremely fresh, extremely bulky, and very shapely right behind their shoulder, and you're not going to get that look naturally without some kind of electrolyte like a Foreshore or game on at the show.
Yep. And again, so please, keep any questions coming you have. We are here to help where we can. Brad's going to be giving away this awesome Sunglo sign to somebody that's in the comments, and we're just going to pick by random. So just be looking for that. I know Brad, his son's got a baseball game that's in about 20 minutes, and he's 15 minutes away, so I think he's going to have to jump here soon. So
we can, no problem. But we can run through a couple more of these because I like show more baseball.
Okay. So next, and this is one where it can be a little bit of a hot button topic, but I want to talk about Paleine and Explode within pigs. Okay. It's still legal out here. There's nothing that says it's not. So just give me a little dive into that.
Okay, so I only feed Explode. I'm not one of those guys that that goes and tries to get his hands on pure Paline and dumps it in there and covered in powder. When I'm not an alchemist in the feed barn. I will tell you, I feel like our family does well at pig shows, not as good as some, better than some. We keep things very simple in our barn: clean feed, clean pens, clean water, right? And we check those 3 things every single day, twice a day. You're probably not going to come into our barn and find dirty-ish pens. You're not going to find dirty waters. You're not going to find dirty feeders. We keep things pretty simple. I will tell you, if you buy a good pig and you do those 3 things, your pig's going to stay pretty healthy and you're going to rock and roll and do better than you did last year. Now, with that being said, you might ask how that turns into Explode. I trust our process. I'm usually not playing catch up. I'm not looking for 752 grams of Paline to dump on top of a pig's deal because, all of a sudden I think he needs 3 times the muscle as he already has. Explode is an enhancer. And like a previous product I do in the commercial world, I can tell you there's probably not been another product that's come out and did exactly what it said it's going to do like Paline. Paline is a beta agonist that will extend that animal's lean growth curve further than what its genetics would have allowed. So what it's going to do is allow them to take lean muscle shape later into their life. In show pig terms, it's going to give them back shape, okay? Don't get crazy with it. And the reason why I only feed Explode is it is a fully balanced, safe product to feed, okay, that has all the buffers and activators inside that feed. So if you just feed straight Explode and you dump it on, let's say, full tank, you're not going to get anything out of it, or straight Paline, because that Paline needs an activator of lysine and a minimum requirement for it to do its job, right? So you got to have the baking soda and vinegar, isn't it? Where you got to have that reaction in their body, and you do that with high protein levels and the beta agonist. Explode is very safe, it's very palatable, and you can know how much you're putting in. And so to me, I'm not a powder Paline guy because I don't know how much I'm putting in there. And I can tell you the negative repercussions on high doses of Paline in livestock are bad. When we talk about foot quality, we talk about some respiratory stuff and body temperature stuff. And so once again, this goes back to my very beginning. Have a good idea of what the maturity pattern is of that animal and when you want to introduce Explode. I know there's some people that try it at different stages in their life. I'm a pretty basic guy. Last 20 days, when I think about Explode, it's about 50 days before the show. I start thinking about getting my hands on it to make sure it's relatively available to me. And I make sure that I have my feed that I need 20 days before I need it. So I've got a bag of Explode sitting there 50 days before my show because I know the last 20, 25 days, he's going to get a low dose, half a scoop of that Explode. And I'm going to give him that final crispness. If I get him too lean, I know I've got a product like Game On that'll get him back pretty bloomy really fast.
Yep.
And I will tell you,
Karen,
based on the type of livestock that I put on feed, I feed Explode. Because I typically buy a really good built animal that needs more muscle. And late in the jackpot season, I realize that we don't have enough muscle, and I feed Explode in Game On. I feed that combination because I feel like the build that we might do good with early in the year starts to go away with the amount of power and maturity that some of these other animals have.
Yep. Yeah, Karen, you have anything to add you want to that?
No, I think he covered that well.
Yeah, and that's where I think you got to look at your animal and just understand what you want out of them. Because if you have a super heavy muscled animal that is pretty lean in its muscle already, it's not a good fit for Paline just because you're just going to lean it up even more, add more expression to that muscle. It's not a good fit. But if you have maybe a little bit of a plain looking one that you want to see a little bit more muscle expression, you want to see a little bit of leanness, you will see a little bit of an increase in consumption too, or just weight gain along with that.
Yep.
It is a perfect fit. You want them to be sound. It's not made for an unsound hog. If it doesn't walk right, we do not feed it Explode. Right. I cannot reiterate enough what Brad said. We do not need it other than the last 20 days. It works really, really fast, and you're going to start seeing results in like 5 days. It's really, really cool to just watch it.
To your point, I don't take them off of it when there's a problem. Let's say I put one on, they react to it extreme. So I'll give you an example. I had a gilt that she won her division at the what would have been the Expo last year. No. She was reserve division. She was reserve division. That was a gilt that was targeted for Kansas City. So she was reserve division at what was the Des Moines show last year. But I knew her endpoint was Kansas City. And I rested her outside. It was something we kind of just tinkered around with. We threw her out in a dirt lot for about 60 days just to kind of let her freshen up and be a pig for a while. And then brought her back in and freshened up skin and hair and everything. And while she was out there, she got a little plane on me, and she had just an incredible ditch down her top. I mean, I thought her top shape was incredible at that Des Moines show. And then here's her strength is gone, right? I mean, totally gone. So we're like 30 days out from American Royal, and I put her on Explode. And on the third day, just being back in the barn, just having that good facility, clean feed, clean pens, clean water, and a better feed, right? I kicked her back on like an 803. Like I just upped it. She was on, I threw her outside, and I had her on like coast, just kind of rolling her along, just a feed that really will kind of pull the bloom out of them to begin with. I come back in and I'm like, well, when we turn the fire on, we turn it on hot. So I threw the 803 in there, put a half a scoop of Explode in there. And I'm telling you, in 3 days, her back, now the Explode didn't work this fast. The environment did. But what I'm telling you is there's a residual in that that'll kind of hang with that pig. So it doesn't stop when you take them off. And I'm telling you, that Explode worked for another week after that. And I saw a bunch of shape out of her. And she definitely had a big back when we rolled into Kansas City. I mean, like, she didn't need it. But what I'm telling you is be thinking of how that product's going to hang in their body a couple of days after the fact. Anytime we put any kind of additive into them, it doesn't leave their body when you stop feeding it to them. And so there's going to be a little bit of carryover on some of those products, if that makes sense. So just be thinking, you might have, when you take them off Explode, there's still 3 or 4 days of Explode left in there, if that makes sense.
Yep. No, it absolutely does. And will you see much fat burn with that? I know, we talked about lean muscle and, it'll sharpen them up, but
you will.
Or do you ever use it for that point, or do you prepare for that, or how do you handle that?
I don't. 2 reasons. I am crazy about animals that get too fat. I think that is one of the most, I just don't like it. And so one, as a crazy show dad, I'm very mindful of body condition to begin with. And remember, for me, I always want pigs getting fatter when they go to the show. I think animals that are depositing fat the final 14 days are the best animals. If I'm removing fat, I'm removing bloom. I've made a mistake at that point. And so to me, I'm very mindful of that. So I don't normally burn fat into a show. I'm actually probably a 10th lean going into a show. And so if I'm in that situation, I'd probably use more final control than I would Explode. I am holding that animal, getting its body really efficient, where it's wanting to eat 4 pounds, it's eating 2. It's wanting to gain a bunch of weight. Its body and skeleton and appetite and rib cage is ready to gain 20 pounds in a week, and I let it go, and I let it do it. And I think that animal, when its feet hold up, is very, very hard to beat. So that's the way we do it. I don't get a pig looking great at 180 pounds and try to hold everything together. And I also don't cram at the end. I don't sit there and try to, like I said before, I'm not the alchemist in the feed room. I am preparing that animal's body to get 14 days of Explode and game on at some level.
Yep. And I do want to elaborate a touch here. So if you go to Sunglo's website, sunglofeeds.com, there are more supplements than you could ever dream of. And they all have they all have a specific purpose. The couple that we've talked about here, they're supplements that really, they play a lot of part in a lot of different animals. So the majority of animals, they play a really big part in it, where we can really utilize them. Some of the other ones, they're really specific scenarios that we can really utilize. But these are just some of the bigger ones that, are used pretty much, we use on our animals almost every year. So if you ever have questions about any others, feel free to put it in the chat. Reach out to us, Karen, Brad, me. There's a lot out there, and there's a lot of supplements that we can certainly help out with. But
hey, and by the way, guys, I enjoy doing these, and so I don't know about you guys, but if this is something that you guys want more of, let us know, because it's perfectly fine for us to jump on, and we can really do a deep dive into just how to get one fat. And so you guys just let us know what you want, and we'll take some time out and do it.
Yeah, we really enjoy. This is why we are in the jobs that we are, because we like working with you you all connecting with you, and I mean, at the end of the day, seeing you all successful. So there was a good question here, and I wanted to elaborate a little bit on it. So for show day, so I mean, we'll wrap up with this. For show day, you talked about that Smorfill game on mixture that you like to do. So you're saying you mix that the day before. So can you just elaborate on that, how you feed it? And I mean, I do think that people could sometimes overdo it on show day and get almost too much belly in them, and how you kind of gauge that and what you look for.
Okay, so a couple things. You've got all this time at home, right? Pick out a day, and that's going to be show day. Let's pick it out 10 days from now, right? If your show is in, August, well, let's do a show day 10 days from now, and prep that animal and get it too full. Don't get it full enough. Get it 30 feet away from you and look at it. We can all judge what comfort looks like, what physical feel looks like. We're looking for balance. If when you look at an animal, the first thing you see is how full it is or how empty it is, make that adjustment, right? Because I judge livestock shows and judge pig shows, but I'm looking at them and your eye is glancing, right? And I talk a lot about moving balance with a pig. Everybody talks about balance. I talk about moving balance more so than their structure, because as an animal moves, that's balance to me, right? Something that can be really, I don't think an animal that's great looking, that moves partially, is good looking. So that all has one piece. When we get them so full they can't move, and I've been that way. I go to Chinese food buffet. You see me walking in the parking lot, my moving balance isn't right. I'm too full. But what I think is you can practice this at home, right? You can practice this at home and how full you get them. To answer your specific question, that mixture of Smorfill and Game On is 5 scoops of Smorfill. And the reason why I'm putting that in there is they love eating it. The dusty stuff on the inside is the goodies, part of that Smorfill that they will absolutely inhale. And then the Game On is some caloric intake for that day. Mix that with a little bit of water in a way that you would mix like oatmeal. Or maybe y'all are out in the grits country or something. Maybe I shouldn't say oatmeal. I don't know. Is it oatmeal out there?
No, not the grits country.
Yeah. Okay, we're too far north. Okay, so but I mean, that consistency that we're looking for. If you do that, what you're really setting yourself up for the next day is that they're going to eat it, right? Now, here's the problem: they're going to eat it, and I always say pigs that eat are fun to feed. So show dads, back up a little bit. Don't get crazy. Don't just keep dumping it in there. What you want to do is take them out, let them walk around a little bit, let them have a bowel movement, let them, because when you get them full on show day, I hear it all the time, like, man, he got out there and right when he came out, he pooped and then he just looked terrible. Well, walk them around a little bit. Those pigs' body is on a schedule. It's on a routine. Let that routine work. Get them out in the morning. I see people all the times at shows, they don't clean their pens. And they get there in the morning, you start feeding and eat them. No. Get them up, let their body move a little bit, give them a drink of water, walk them around, let their body do its process, and then fill them back up, and then let them do their process again. And if you practice that at home with seeing what the right fill is, you won't need to jump on a Facebook Live to ask me, because you will already have a good judgment of what that animal needs for body fill. And so I do not get them too full, because that looks wasteful to me. And I want them to have a good, firm body shape underneath.
Yeah, and I think anymore and this goes honestly across most species, we're picking a more balanced than we ever had before. So, I mean, we want them to look natural. We don't want them to have that unnatural, way too full, like you're coming away from the Chinese buffet, just like you're saying, where, I mean, you're not moving right. You're kind of groggy.
It shouldn't look uncomfortable.
You want to look balanced and happy.
I want them to be slightly less than uniform. Right, so I don't want the lowest thing on their body to be their mid body, like it just stick out. I want them to be slightly less than uniform. I don't want them to be straight across from their chest all the way back to their flank. I want their rear body to drop down just a little bit from where on a heifer, where that would join up into their brisket, or on a pig where that would join up into their chest. I want that to slightly get deeper, but I want it to be in a firm way, and I do that with full tank. I mean, I feel like that does that. Yep. See how I came back to full tank because I like it so much?
Yeah, other than maybe Brandon Yanis, you're the biggest proponent.
I got it from him, though. He really changed my mind on it.
Showed you the light of day.
Oh man, absolutely.
Hey, well, I will say, I think we're going to wrap up here.
Okay.
We ended up talking a lot about pig supplements and pig feed, so we didn't even get to the cattle stuff. So I think, Karen, we're going to have another one of these in about a week or two to really hit on the cattle stuff. So
Glad you said we'd have another one.
Oh,
there we go. So we'll get one of those out again. So just be looking for that. I really want to get in on the cattle stuff because there's some really cool things on the cattle side. So just be looking for that. I want to thank you, Brad. I hope you enjoy the baseball. Good luck with it. Karen, thanks for joining us. And then thanks again. Be waiting for that sign for that give out because it's coming. So thank you for that, Brad.
And shoot me a message on Facebook, ask Nathan. And if you guys want another one of these just on pigs or on the cattle, just let us know. We can jump back on. We don't have to schedule it too far out. We can do that. So thanks for having me out there. I feel like I'm out east. I feel like I'm in Maryland, but I'm down here in Waco, Texas.
We're glad to
there
have
you go with Chip and Joanna.
Thank you, Brad.
Joanna. All right, see you guys.
Thanks, Brad.